everyone, and welcome again to another exciting episode of the Terry McGriff Show, along with my illustrious co-host here, Andre L. Sutherland, saying Happy New Year to everybody. Starting this year off with some playoff football. Got a late start, had a lot of stuff going on, but we're going to get back into this year for 2022, giving you some good sports talk. My illustrious co-host, Andre L. Sutherland. Andre, how you doing, my friend?
I'm glad to be here. You looking too.
I feel you, man. I feel you. A lot of exciting stuff that's going on since the year started. We had a little hiatus, but we want to make sure that we give these fans what they love, our good old sports insight. So we're going to talk about today. We're going to get into a little bit of playoff football. Then we're going to talk about some coaching carousels, and lastly, we're going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger. We're not sure he hasn't officially announced it yet, but we're going to see if what we think about his career, since we think last night against Kansas City was his last game playing in the NFL. So let's get into it, man. The weekend was pretty doggone good for us in football, starting with the Bengals-Raiders game. Kudos to the Raiders to what they had to go through getting into the game, playing on a short week. And it was probably one of the best games of the day, of the whole weekend. Obviously, we had some blowouts after that with Buffalo and New England and Kansas City and Pittsburgh along the way. And we're going to really get into the Dallas debacle. And then tonight, here we're recording here on Monday night, we got the Cardinals and the Rams. So it's a pretty exciting wild card weekend. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. I want to get your thoughts on that. What you think?
So first of all, let's back up a little bit. Shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs and the University of Georgia and the national championship win. If you're an Alabama fan, oh well. But the point that I'm making here is that we honor winners and we talk crap about losers, and that's what we do. And that's what the playoffs is all about. So if you're a Bengals fan, congratulations. If you're a Bills fan, congratulations. A Buccaneers, 49ers, and Chiefs fan, congratulations. Everybody else I didn't name who happened to put on the uniform this weekend, get over it. That's what the playoffs is about, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, you're right. I will begrudgingly, as a Gator fan, say congratulations to the Georgia Bulldog Nation. It's been a long, long time. I think most of y'all ain't never seen them win one. So, they won the game. So I'll leave it at that. Also, I want to say a good shout out to the city of Cincinnati while we're talking about it. So far, they've had a pretty good sports year. The Cincinnati Bearcats winning undefeated in the regular season, playing in the playoffs, breaking that ceiling for those mid-majors colleges. And the Bengals, who really were been one of the surprise teams in the NFL this year, also winning the home playoff game. And, that game was really exciting. That was probably the most interesting game. So it was a great way to open up the playoff season for the NFL. And hopefully we can have more games like that. We don't want to have any games like this. The game that was after. That was a pretty boring game. It was disappointing too. But there were some records I want to tell you about that game. I think it was the first time in NFL history that a team went the entire game without having to have to do a punt or a field goal. I think they 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns, and then they did a kneel down to close the game out. So kudos to the Buffalo Bills for that massive performance offensively and defensively. So, they came in here, they're pretty hot between them and also what Kansas City did after a slow start with Pittsburgh. I think they were really dominant, and, we'll see what they got going forward. And both, it's going to be interesting because now, with the seeding, the AFC playoffs are done for the weekend. You got the Bengals, who I think are good enough to beat anybody when they play right. They have the Tennessee Titans. I think Tennessee got a bad draw with that because Tennessee's got a really powerful team, but that might be a bad matchup defensively for them. Having to deal with that offense. Let's talk about what we saw in the NFC playoffs. Like I said, outside of the Cincinnati game, the other games were really not competitive. But, especially with Tampa Bay, with losing a lot of veteran players, they just seemed like they were right back into the playoff mode from last year. I don't know what the word mollywop took to the woodshed. The Eagles, it was more like a practice game to me. I don't think I watched any of the fourth quarter because I'm like, are they gonna put Blaine Gabbert in to finish this out? Because it was really not competitive throughout the whole game. So looking forward to hopefully a better game because the last time the Cardinals played the Rams, that was a really good game. I think it went down to the final seconds. So, what do you think going into this? What do you think about it?
Well, listen, if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, coach, or player, listen, you can lose every piece on the chessboard as long as you have Tom Brady, you're still in the game. And that's what we saw. I mean, shout out to Jalen Hurts for having a pretty okay season, but if you go up against Tom Brady, it's like driving or talking to him through a brick wall. And so,
I like that analogy.
And so we move forward to the 49ers versus the Cowboys. We saw what we saw. I mean, a Cowboys team who's been desperate for star power kind of fan out there on the field. And the beautiful stadium there is in the 49ers who brought a bunch of no-name people into the season. Now all have names like Bobo, Garoppolo, guys who just get it done on the dirt. And that's what you get out of these playoff games. That's what you get out of wild card weekend.
Well, I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to take a little bit of approach on that game. A lot of people kind of gave Dallas made them the favorite. But my question was why? You have a team that's about 3 years ago. The main stars, except for Deebo Samuel, were playing in the Super Bowl without one missed pass. Might have won the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they were injury plagued last season because they were predicted to go deep in last year's playoff. So you had a veteran team as far as playoff experience playing against a bunch of relative newcomers, even though they were on the road, because they did play, in my opinion, the toughest division in the NFL. Right now there's 3 teams out of 4 in that division currently in the playoffs, but the final 2 teams of the playoffs in their division playing tonight against each other. So they were battle tested throughout their division. And even the Seattle Seahawks, their record wasn't great, but they were no pushover team because that was a tough division. However, the Dallas Cowboys pretty much played in the cupcake division. You had the Eagles, even though the Eagles made the playoffs, the Washington and the Giants, they've had their issues. So, I was not surprised to see the 49ers win the game. What was surprising was the way they started was not surprising, but the way they finished the game, giving actually Dallas pretty much a fighting chance to come back and win it, because it was pretty much dominated them for most of the game, by the 49ers for most of the game. And once again, Dallas has, everybody's picking on them. So figure out a way to lose the game, how to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. So,
I need to answer your question that you posed was, why was Dallas favored? And it's pretty simple. Dallas came into that game last night 12-5, San Francisco 10-7. So I mean, we talked about this so a while back with NCAA playoff bracket. You play to win the game. Dallas just got some more on the board before we got down to this nitty-gritty tournament. But I mean, you kind of alluded to it. Dallas played a pretty easy division in the NFC East. And so when you play teams like the Giants, the Washington football team, and teams who regularly don't put up numbers, you're going to get those highlights. And they look good when you play those teams twice a year. But like you said, San Francisco has to play people like Aaron Donald, Russell Wilson, and twice a season, every season. Yeah. So you're going to get those battle scars out of the way very, very early. And they were, like you said, battle tested going into this game. I don't think they lost because of that. We heard Stephen A. Smith say on ESPN this morning on Double Take, we had offensive coordinators who tried to do too much. And whether he was trying to get a job or basically lose a job, his doing too much might have cost the Dallas Cowboys their season. And so when we have a team like San Francisco who did what they've been doing all year, run the ball, let Jimmy Garoppolo dip and dive down the field, they didn't change who they were to try to move forward. And thus, they did.
Got a question for you in your opinion. Do you think Dallas is just basically overhyped? The reason I say this is obviously they play in Dallas. They're a media darling. They have the so-called America's team, but they have all this media on everything and do it. Everywhere they go, it's all hyped up. Sometimes too much, sometimes, not enough. But because they're Dallas, seems like their players, when they do something good, get more credit than other players from other cities that don't have that media exposure. To myself, I see the numbers on some of these things, and I say, oh, wow, they do have good numbers. But when I see them playing in meaningful games with, other named teams, they don't normally step up to the plate to do what they have to do. I.e., the beginning of the game, going back to the beginning of the season, it went down to Tampa. They played a good showing, but they still didn't find a way to win the game. And they have everybody who plays on that, if he does anything, he's instantly a media star. Vice, there's players probably on lesser known cities that probably have just as good, if not better players. So what do you think about that?
I don't think it's overhyped. I think it's oversaturated. Just look at this. If I walk around naked in my house, nobody cares. But if I walk around naked on Main Street, a lot of people are going to pay attention to that. So, and that's what's happening with the Dallas Cowboys. No, I don't think they're overhyped. I think they have, on the regular, have great seasons. They play great football in the regular season. From week 1 to week 18, we saw great things. Sometimes they came up short, but that was only 5 times. They won 12 games. You can't say that's hype right there. That's just good play. Now, the difference why I can say it's oversaturated is because, quite frankly, there are more cameras in Dallas than there are in Jacksonville, Florida. There are more cameras in Dallas than there is in Seattle, Washington. And there are more cameras in Dallas than there is in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot more people who get to see the Dallas Cowboys. They're America's team, if you still want to call them that. But at the end of the day, they're there for a reason. Ezekiel Elliott, regardless of what happened last night, is still Zeke. CeeDee Lamb, regardless of what happened last night, is still CeeDee Lamb. Michael Parsons might just win Rookie of the Year if he doesn't win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And of course, Dak Prescott, regardless of the whips and woes that he put on the field on film this year, he's still Dak Prescott. And so they have definitely earned all of the adulation that's been sent their way. Now, have they earned some of the praise? That's still to be said because you can't get it done when it comes.
Yeah, and that's my point. I look at what they do, and you know the names because they are in Dallas. But would Dak Prescott be Dak Prescott putting up the same numbers in Jacksonville? Ezekiel Elliott, would he be the same Ezekiel Elliott putting up those same numbers in Carolina? You know what I mean? Those guys get even more accolades because they're in the media dollar. And give you an example, regardless of how good or how bad it is, the New York Giants, New York Jets, because of the media, they get guys talking about them if they do anything right. You know what I mean? So I understand the whole marketing aspect of it all. I just wonder, are they overhyped? Are they as good as they're all being on? Because everything that they do good gets amplified. Sometimes the stuff they do bad gets amplified too. But like right now, they're talking about these are mistakes that the players made, that the coaches made, Kellen Moore and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, Zeke Prescott is a veteran quarterback. He took the ball on a quarterback sneak. Was he not? First of all, was he not authorized to change the play? Did they tell him more not authorized? Like, bro, this is not a good idea for me to do a quarterback sneak on this. That's when he got 9 seconds. And then on top of that, he should have known that I have to hand the ball to the referee for him to spot the ball so that we can spike. They're rushing, beating the lineman, everybody beating them up. That's what you're supposed to do. But they should have made sure that the referee had the ball, what they can do. And on top of that, you probably would have went, you like, coach, we ain't got enough time for me to run this ball, especially if I know I can't get out of bounds. And especially the way that they were getting the ball to the outside and getting out of bounds to stop that clock. The situational awareness was just terrible on that last thing. So that's what I'm saying. But the blame, once again, went on the coaching staff. And the coaching staff did not make that mistake. It was the players.
Well, let me say this. And the old saying goes, players win, coaches lose. Mm-hmm. And that's what we saw last night. And now, whoever made the decision to go for a quarterback sneak, obviously, in complete hindsight, is wrong. But we have that luxury of having 20/20 vision when it's all said and done in the past. But whoever made the call in the initial moment and had that point of view said it was the right call. Now, did Dak have the mind or the permission, if you will, to change the play? Maybe, maybe not. Who cares? Because, again, we're looking at it from hindsight and we're saying that it's the wrong call. Now, with all of that being stated and affirmed, who do we blame on that? We can't just shoot. You don't just shoot that target at that and say, yeah, go back and say who made the call. Mm-hmm. And then in the presser last night, Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, said he did make the call for that. Now, his reasoning, we don't know yet because they didn't, obviously as a media, I'm not going to give you time to tell me the reason why because I'm going to jump on the fact that you made the wrong decision. But what we do know is that he made the call. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. As a player, especially in a playoff moment, I'm not thinking. I don't want to even have the luxury of thinking. What I want to have the luxury of just going and reacting and doing and going, boom, go. This is the play. This is what we need to do. Go. This is the play. This is what we need to do. Go. This is the play. This is what we need to do. Go. And that's what Dak is. You know, when these players get to this level, you know, they're robot like that. And again, not saying that Dak is just completely relieved of any guilt at the time, but as a coach, I'm gonna take that blame because I don't want that on Dak. And that's what they're doing. And they're a team and an organization like that. And I can't be mad at that. And yeah, Kellen Moore, you're gonna get all this smoke because you chose to run the ball with your quarterback and you got two horses behind you if that was the case, if you truly wanted to run. So I mean, yeah, Kellen Moore's gonna get the blame on that, and that's gonna get relief because who calls a quarterback sneak with 8 seconds left in the playoff game? But that's beside the point. Beside the point, Kellen Moore, good luck with finding a coaching job after this.
Especially the way he called the rest of the game.
So
I think that was really why he got him out of it because of how he called some of those things that they were doing out of the ordinary before that. Well, let's talk about a team who was successful and up and coming, in my opinion, the Cincinnati Bengals. They've been like a mirror to Dallas as far as offensive output. You know, Dallas has had some great games where they put a whole bunch of points on the board. So is the Bengals. And they had a home playoff game, and I think it's their first time in the playoffs for a few years. And it was their first playoff win since the 90s. And the way they went about their business to me was very, very professional. It was totally opposite of what you're seeing how the Cowboys handle their business. I like the young stars that they have. To me, they're going to be a scary team for at least 6 to 8 years, as long as those guys stay healthy. Who you got? They're probably going to have to replace Mixon here in a couple of years because he came a little bit before them. But if he can stay healthy and they can find a good replacement, usually you can find a good decent running back. But I like what they put together offensively, and their defense is decent. Their defense is decent enough to keep them competitive. And I think that they can make a run. They remind me of like the Jaguars, not defensively, but offensively back in the early, with the Fred Taylor times. They can really put up points on you in a hurry. And they're young and they're too naive to know that they're not supposed to be here. You know what I mean? That's how they play. Okay, we're supposed to be on the field, right? We're supposed to win, right? Okay, this supposed to be too big for us. I didn't know nobody until gave me that memo. You know what I mean? So I like how their energy and the way they came out and played. And what makes it more impressive is they have an urgency to score. A lot of these teams don't have an urgency to score. Obviously, like I said, the Cowboys, same way, they didn't seem like they had that urgency to score until the game was pretty much on the line. I think they have a big future when it comes to their division. Looking at how everything played out, it's going to be hard to keep them down. And obviously, like the 49ers a couple of years ago, the injuries could derail all of that. But I see big things for them. On the flip side, I'm even more impressed with what Las Vegas Raiders did going through what they went through this season and staying focused enough to make a playoff run and actually be competitive on the short week. And I want to get your thoughts on both of those points.
Well, before I get to the Vegas, I'm going to pick it back off you with the Vegas Raiders. Let's go ahead, and whether we like it or not, or like him, give Gruden his credit for putting this team together. And
Gruden and makeup.
Both. You know what I mean? And giving them credit for putting this team together. There's a reason why they did a lot of things that they did in the offseason. And we see the fruits of their labor right now. Mm-hmm. Why Waller isn't listed with the rest of the tight ends in that group of elite tight ends like Gronk, like Kelsey, I don't know. And I don't get that, but that's another conversation for another day. But kudos to Derek Carr and the numbers that he put up. You know, this game was kind of neck and neck up to the point midway through the third quarter where the Bengals was like, all right, now we're tired. And now getting to the Bengals, that's the difference between the Bengals and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are kind of like a hold-on team. Like, hold on, we'll answer the phone in a little bit. I'm eating right now. And I'll get to it when I get to it. The Bengals are, all right, food down, my phone's ringing, let's go, I got to answer this call. And that just basically means the Cowboys, they'll score. They're trying to more or so control the clock than the game. If they can score here and there, time of possession, that's their game. That's been Kellen Moore since Boise State, if you haven't paid attention, by the way. But the Bengals want to score now. They don't have time to win because we don't know if we're going to get it on the back end. We're not waiting for W-2 to get this tax return. We got to get it now. And that's what they're doing. And you said it a little bit, they're naive to not know that they're not supposed to be this good. I think it's a little different. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase want that. They want that pressure. They don't mind being in that. They come from a program with Coach Oregon, who said, we do this way. This is how we play. And if you want to be up there with the Crimson Tide and the so forth and so on, you got to win now. And that's the kind of attitude that they've taken into this locker room. And not to say that Joe Burrow has become the unrivaled leader of the Bengals, but that C is on his chest for a reason. And they trust him to be that guy. I mean, 24 for 34, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns isn't by accident or by naive faith. And they got it like that. That's just who they are as a team. And so kudos to them on that win.
I agree with that. We're gonna move on to that because we pretty much said what we need to say on that. I want to put out something about the Buccaneers. Just when you think they got too many injuries, it look old. We know we got Brady, but when is it gonna break down? When are these guys? They seem like the old, wily, old team like Grandmama. She said, baby, I got this. And then, well, what we gonna eat? What we gonna eat? I don't see nothing in the cabinet. What we gonna eat? Next thing you know, when dinner's out there, you got all this nice smelling food. And like, well, my grandma, what you did with the boy? It took all day. She had stuff in the crock pot, slow cooking and everything because you was outside playing. And then you smell all this good food. It just seems like a fine wine. It just always seems to taste good come playoff time. Once again, JPP still ain't lost a playoff game. And it was utter domination, And it seems like at the end of the game, they said, okay, we'll let this go now so that they won't go home without no points on the board. And we want them guys to feel like they actually came together and deserve to be in the playoffs. So it's hard to pick against them because when you think they're getting too old or too beat up, they put a performance like this again to let you know, forget about us if you want to. We'll be raising that trophy and you'll be wondering what happened. Your thoughts?
Tom Brady is Tom Brady. I don't know if I need to really elaborate into that, but because he's Tom Brady. He wakes up in the morning knowing that he's Tom Brady. He probably eats lunch thinking that he's Tom Brady. And he's probably going to go to sleep at night with the name Tom Brady. And as long as the sun comes up and goes down, and the moon comes up and goes down, the sun comes back up again the next day, and he's Tom Brady, the Bucs are good. I mean, and I said it at the top of the show, as long as that chess piece is still on the board, you're good. But everyone's talking about how they're injured and they're this and they're that. There's still pieces on the chess set that we keep forgetting about. People like Villa, people like Sue. You said JPP is still balling down there. He still has 87 to throw to. I don't understand what injuries they thought were going to hamper them down the line because who's hurt that's hurting them? You know what I mean? And no offense to the Philadelphia Eagles, when your leading rusher is also your leading passer, that's an issue. And Jalen Hurts, we don't live in an NFL day and age where people are afraid of a Michael Vick type player. They lived with that, so they know what to do with you. And so when your leading receiver only has 92 yards with 6 receptions, that's an issue. And I'm not a big stat person. Just with the naked eye, you look like crap. And so at the end of the day, when you look like crap and you're going against Tom Brady and he wakes up as Tom Brady, eats lunch as Tom Brady, goes to sleep as Tom Brady, you're going to lose.
Well, I agree with you. And I think what made it so disheartening looking at the Eagles' perspective, there was nothing they could do offensively because that defense Say, oh, it's playoff time again. Let's go back to what we were last year, dominating everybody again. It looked like the exact same defense from 2020, and they were suffocating. And he had no place that he could go with the ball. He couldn't make his reads in time because he felt every time. I mean, and what was, like you said, two players that I really, obviously, you know about both of the ends, but Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, and then they brought in a third guy. They were giving so much pressure up the middle. He just couldn't see the. He kept missing the crossing route. What was his name? The former Heisman. He was open all game long, but you couldn't see him because the pressure was directly in his face. So it would just remind me again. I'm like, wait a minute, everybody, you think these guys old? That's that same defense that stomped everybody last year, and it looked like they're back again. And they're gonna host all the way until they get to the NFC Championship game, and they're gonna go probably back to Green Bay where they whoop their behind again. And it's like, okay, just when you're thinking, okay, maybe this is gonna be somebody else's year, you got to say, okay, they gave you the wake up call. They still Tampa Bay. They're still the defending world champion. Give them the respect that they respect us due. On to this, Buffalo. I watched probably about a half of that. I've seen football. I remember my first football, and I'm going to date myself, in 1979. I was watching my first football game, I remember it to me like the Orange Crush defense from Denver, all those type of things. I've never in my life, and I've seen some dominating performances, the great performance that the Jaguars did against Miami in 99. What Buffalo did to a team coached by Bill Belichick, New England team, I've never seen that before. That was closer to a college, Alabama playing Mandarin High School. I mean, it was like close to time I can think like hot knife through butter on that. It was just too dominating. I've not seen anything quite so dominating in a while like that, especially when I've seen people score, but the way they scored on them, it was like there was nothing that the Patriots could do. And I'm talking, and what was so impressive about it, it was a Belichick team that you expect to be prepared for just about everything. So that was the most important. It was not like the score, it was who they did it against. It was like, this is the first time I've seen where Belichick didn't have any answers for what was happening.
I have an answer.
Okay.
2 years ago, the Patriots let go probably what will go down as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And just to put this in layman's terms, when you go to the store, you buy milk, right? They got the milk in the red cap. That's the whole milk. You got the milk in the dark blue cap. That's like the 2%. Then you got the milk in the light blue cap. That's like 1%. Matt Jones is like that 1% milk that you get when you don't got enough money to go get the red milk. But for Tom Brady, it's still the whole milk. And the whole milk still got all the nutrients and fat and all that good stuff. Matt Jones is going to be good. One day he can be that good. He's still only 1% of what you let go 2 years ago because you thought you were that good of a coach. And that's not a knock on Bill Belichick. But Bill Belichick, we figured you out. We know what you like to do. You want to dick and dive down this field. You want to try to run the ball a little bit. Hopefully you can get by 2 or 3 yards in 2 possessions so you can stay on schedule to throw the ball on third down. That's been your routine. And it's worked great when you've had that whole milk back there that the team could drink. But your team can't eat off of that no more. Another team is eating off of that in Tampa Bay, Florida. And now you're giving your team this 1% milk, hopefully that they can get filled. It ain't working. And not only is it not working, it's hurting. Because you're putting him in situations like last night where he threw 24 for 38, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So I'm saying, and then you're going against somebody who's throwing 21 for 25, 308 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now he has to play tit for tat with somebody who else is whole milk. But you're not whole milk yet. But you still got that little stake around the ring. You know what I'm saying? So that's what he's doing. And granted, it was a blowout. But you can't put this, again, players win, coaches lose. Bill Belichick knew what he had. and he got out schemed last night. And that is, and like 2 years ago, we kept asking the question, well, who was the issue? Was it Brady or was it Belichick? I think it's been 2 years now. And I think a Super Bowl later, we can answer that question.
Well, I'm going to put it this way. Yeah, and I tend to agree with you, but I mean, I still consider Belichick probably the greatest coach of the generation.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying nothing.
But what, like I said, you elaborated my point was a few weeks ago, these two teams played, driving snowstorm, and the Patriots ran through the ball only one time and managed to win the game. This time, it was because of they managed to manage the ball offensively, but their defense was able to really shut down Buffalo's offense. Okay, it looked like New England went into the game, said we're going to use the exact same game plan we did the last time, and Buffalo changed things up. And it was like New England did not have any counter or an adjustments to what Buffalo was doing. It wasn't the offense. I expected the offense to score in the 2017-20. What I was not expecting for that defense to give up a touchdown every single drive of the entire game. With no stops.
Bill Belichick lost 2 Super Bowls. That's embarrassing.
I understand it, but not like that. Not like that. And this is the playoffs. Getting in the Super Bowl is one thing, but you lose the first round and you utterly are embarrassed defensively. And he's a defensive guru. That was the surprise. Not the offensive. I expected there was going to be a slowdown game for them because, first of all, they don't have the talent at wide receiver. They have a rookie quarterback, and their running game was going to be really not as dominant in that kind of weather game, even though the field conditions were great. It was the fact that defensively, they could not even slow Buffalo down to give their offense a chance. So I can't even tell you what the offense would have did because they didn't get the extra possessions. Now, the turnover, they didn't stop them at all. Did they even stop them on a third down conversion at all? It's just tempting. Now, a couple of them, they didn't even have to have third down conversion. It was just such a dominant performance offensively against a Bill Belichick coach defense. And that was the surprising thing I said about what I was talking about.
Well, the issue is you got to realize Buffalo didn't have a quarterback. And you noted that earlier with the fact that they didn't play.
Right.
New England went 7 for 14 on third down, Buffalo 6 for 7. And so, again, we saw one of the few times where Bill Belichick just got out coached. And that's not a normal thing to talk about, and it's very humbling to coaches of Bill Belichick's, caliber and stand. But it happens. I mean, like I said earlier, he got beat in 2 Super Bowls the same way, doing the same thing early in the season that he thinks was going to work again. He's definitely one of those people, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I think I think he's also one of those coaches that needs to realize, it wasn't broke then, but now it's film on not being broken. And so I don't think he realizes, this is 2022. Film can be the death of us all in sports. And if I got film on you from at least 3 weeks ago, I cannot work to beat you in 2 weeks.
Okay. We're gonna skip the Kansas City Pittsburgh game. We're gonna talk about it a little bit later. We're gonna talk about today's matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and the LA Raiders. The LA Rams. The last time these two teams got together, it was a classic game. It was really good back and forth. It went down to the wire, and the Rams was able to prevail. They're going back to LA. LA has a chance to do what Tampa Bay did, play a home Super Bowl in their home game. We know that they're motivated. You know that they made moves. My question to you, did they make enough right moves? Do you see Matthew Stafford as the guy getting him over the hump? They brought in a few other players in, OBJ, I can't think his name, but from Broncos to try to get them over the hump. Jalen Ramsey, of course, My thing is, until he shows me, I'm not a believer in Matthew Stafford because obviously he has great talent around him. And he hasn't done statistically too much more than what the previous quarterback that they traded away for him done. His numbers are career men, but this year, outside of Cooper Kupp, okay, they've been all right. They've been living with their defense, and this is the time we'll know whether he's that guy because then this is what they traded. That's what they traded for, to see what he does. And I'm anxious to see how he plays. Hopefully, he plays within himself and doesn't try to prove too much. But I want to see him against a team that I think is really poised because they started out hot, had a little bit of a lull, and I think they're hungry. The Arizona Cardinals, and Arizona Cardinals remind me of an old school Patriots team because they got so many hybrid pieces that can do different things. They got different, obviously, you know about J.J. Watt and, Chandler Jones, but they got, what's the guy's name we were talking about? The Clemson linebacker. They got guys, Buda Baker, they got guys that can do kind of different, they remind me matchup problems. And offensively, they got enough pieces offensively with Kyler Murray, and especially they get some offensive weapons back on the offense with the running game. It's going to be an interesting game, and I'm intrigued because this is probably the most interesting game, and I'm kind of glad they saved it for Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, this got prime time for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we've seen this game twice, and it came up different both times.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is not. Let me back up here. First of all, Kyler Murray deserves his roses, and he deserves them down. And there's a reason why I say he deserves them down because I don't think he's going to get them down. But okay, and it's not a shot at Kyler Murray because he's almost outplayed himself, if you will. And again, I want to keep saying it's not a shot at him, but this is now the time where you don't have the opportunity to outplay yourself. You got to play to win, or you're playing and you're going home. But I said something earlier in the season late last year, and I was like, I don't know about this Matthew Stafford. But after 4,886 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 17 interceptions, he might be where he belongs. And when you have a guru, almost a guru like Sean McVay, who's literally looks like he's playing Madden on the sideline at times, it just works. And then Sony Michel, who's having an amazing season that we're not talking about enough, just because he only has 4 touchdowns.
And you got to talk about that.
Yeah. Look, and listen, people keep wondering why there's only one guy getting all the touchdowns because you can't double him and OBJ. You can't do that. You can try. You're going to regret it.
And you got Ben Jefferson.
And you got Ben Jefferson, but then you got this guy named Cooper Kupp who has 145 receptions.
He's triple crown winner.
He's the leader in that.
He's triple crown winner.
He's 1,947 yards on field. He's the leader in that. There's 16 touchdowns because he's the leader in that. You can't listen. You can minimize it, but you can't stop it. And so that's what the Cardinals. They're going to have to put a Band-Aid on the bleeding, but it's going to be too much blood fusing from the artery for them to not avoid this death. And that is going to be the issue with Arizona Cardinals. They've had a great season. I'm not knocking them. Connor has been balling. Kirk is one of the actually better receivers in this league, but we don't get to talk about him because Kyler Murray runs around like a rat on fire. But the Los Angeles Rams have way too many guns shooting at the Cardinals for them not to take the stuff.
Especially predicting the Rams win. I think I'll pick the Rams to win too. I just think they just have they match up better. They seem to they have just a little bit more to get there. But I would not be surprised if the Cardinals end up winning this game. But they have a little bit of more pressure outside of just being a normal playoff game because they basically sold all their chips in the middle of the table to get to the Super Bowl, and it will be looked down as a bad year in their organization if they don't get to the Super Bowl. So let's move on to our next subject. Coaching. We have 8 jobs open, possibly just 7. And I'll start with this. I can't remember his name, but the Raiders need to keep the guy that will make their interim coach their head coach. You have more and more names being entered into this head coaching pool, especially when it comes to the Jaguars, obviously the Bears and all these guys. So you got a lot of leeway. I mean, a lot of movement and a lot of moving parts with all these coaches.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, speaking Jaguars specific, I would tell if I was advising Shot Khan to say, take your time. Take your time. Make sure you got it right. Don't try to be the first one because you got all these other guys in here. Make sure that this time you get the guy that you fit that fits the vision and somebody responsible. My two people would be obviously if I would take Caldwell if his health was good enough, and I'll take Peterson. Um, Somebody I would interview that's not been in rumored in this coaching circuits if he was going to go defensively. I know they got all these guys I'm talking about, but a person that I like to see, I like if you've been there, done that. I would go if you don't mind having a defensive guy, but somebody to steady the ship. I would give a call to Houston about Lovie Smith because he's been a Super Bowl coach before. You know what I mean? And he was a college head coach. So he also has his eye on what's out there in the college world. He just left the college world. So he kind of gives you that thing that you said you was going to get with Urban Meyer that had ties still what's going on in college. So he just left there. And he's been there, done that. He's taken a team without a great quarterback to a Super Bowl and almost won it. And he's also been a head coach in college. So he has best of both worlds. So he's got a lot of experience. And the players tend to love him. The one thing I would also say, get guys that have done that. If you're going to get an inexperienced guy, I would say you go with somebody who's pretty knowledgeable and has been under great mentorship, which would be Byron Leftwich. Working under Bruce Arians in 2 jobs as that coordinator, he would probably be the most qualified, even though you have Eric Bieniemy over there. And he's a guy that's coming back to where, so he knows the lay of the land, and he would understand how to deal with the politics of the city, other than somebody who's never been here before. And I'll get your take on that.
Well, the guy you're looking for from the Raiders, his name is Rich Bisaccia, who's done obviously a great job with the Las Vegas Raiders. But we're talking Jacksonville Jaguars. First of all, let me go ahead and I went on record last year or last summer saying that Urban Meyer hiring was probably the worst thing we've done in a while. The words "I told you so" just don't seem to do it justice. And I got laughed at in media rooms after that one because who's laughing now? But the point that I'm making is, you said it, you gotta take your time. And Doug Marrone wasn't a bad hire, but you also didn't give Doug Marrone pieces. Gus Bradley was a horrible hire, but again, you didn't give him the tools to work.
Long for the Del Rio days, that's crazy.
There was a guy between Del Rio and Gus Bradley whose name forgets me right now.
He's coaching.
If that's how short of a tenure he had.
1 year.
Yeah, so, you got names like Byron Leftwich. I would also reach out to Todd Bowles if he's interested in the job, because his defensive job that he's doing in Tampa Bay is crazy right now. But then Brian Flores is still sitting out there without a job. Why Miami let him go will still be a mystery.
He already had 2 interviews, from what I heard too.
And then on top of that, you have your usual candidates who kind of get mixed in that. But I would also look at Joe Judge. Joe Judge just got released, and yeah, he didn't get a good shot at that in New York.
Only reason I'm going to interrupt you right there. Only reason because some of the comments Joe Judge has made, and I think that was one of the reasons he got put out, is because he kind of went out in the left field with some of the stuff, and I think he was collateral damage to the Urban Meyer situation, because some of the stuff that Urban Meyer put out, things like nature, and how much ridicule the Jaguars got for the way Urban Meyer does his press conferences, it kind of spilled. When he did something like that in an even bigger market, it's like, man, this dude is a clown. And obviously, you don't want people wearing clown stuff at Giant Stadium that they did down here. So I think his mouth got him in more trouble. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think the pressure of winning and trying to win now in that city got to him to make some statements when he could have just probably did the real Belichick approach and just said nothing. Said a bunch of coach speak and said nothing at the same time. So I don't know. He's probably going to have to go back and do a coordinator gig and then get another. I don't see him getting a job with all these other guys who actually are probably more qualified. I could see back in New York, I could see Todd Bowles getting that job since he was a former Jets coach, somebody that knows the lay of the land. That would not surprise me.
But some quick ways to lose ticket sales? Somebody like Bill O'Brien.
Oh, yeah. And he interviewed here, and they said that didn't go very well from what I heard from some media sources.
Want to lose some more ticket sales? Hire Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
We love him back in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and these are the things. But I think they're trying to go the opposite way and do their diligence and interview all these guys. But it remains to be seen. Hopefully, we'll pray for the best with all these jobs. The Bears is going to be an intriguing hire. I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, their coach is there. He's going to be out there too. So we'll see. On to this. Obviously, the last game that we want to talk about, and we're going to get into this as we say, how great job Kansas City did after a slow start. But what I want to say was I was happy to see Ben Roethlisberger go out as a champion. He didn't win the game, but, you kind of went out on your sword, so to speak, as a warrior. They find a way, thanks to the Jaguars, to get into the playoffs. So he didn't end his career without being in the playoffs. That's the way he started his career in the playoffs and got himself into a Super Bowl. I'm happy. I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He maybe not the first ballot, but I would even probably put him in first ballot because he's been to 2 Super Bowl numbers, playoffs. And outside of what he'd done when he was younger, he kind of been a model citizen for that city. I think they Mike Tomlin willed them to get into the playoffs because they were probably one of the tougher divisions outside the NFC West. And I'm happy for him that, he's going to go out on his own terms. They're not going to show him the door. He's trying to pick and choose that he's going to leave. And they show how the class organization the Pittsburgh Steelers are by the way they did it. And those players by rallying around them, even though they started out slow, that defense just wasn't enough to slow down Kansas City. There's nothing you can say bad about what they did. It was just Kansas City had too many horses for them. But I would like to, give that, if it is his sunset, I think he went out as a warrior, and I think he kind of solidified, even in a loss, why he's a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. And I get your thoughts.
Listen, there's some people that like, and then there's some people that you hate, and there's some people that you hate and like, and that you like to hate. Yeah, I hate the like Ben Roethlisberger. I really just wanted him to stump his toe one day, during pre-game warm-ups, and maybe he don't play, and it just be that. But he, like you said, he's one of those guys who just always there, and he's if you don't not have a losing season by accident, those aren't things that just happen by happenstance. And anybody who's thrown 64,000 plus yards is a Hall of Fame in my book. Whether he gets the gold jacket or not, I think he does, like you noted. But 418 touchdowns and only 211 of those of his passes are interceptions throughout a career spanning between 2004 and now. That's just on GOAT status, if you will. And so, like I said, I hate to like him. I like to hate him. But he's just that type of guy. He's really good at what he does. And, there are a couple of people who are number 7, Michael Vick, John Elway, but, Ben Roethlisberger will be in that mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's the greatest quarterback, in my opinion, that wore that number. You put the old Burt Jones from back in the day in there. I think nobody ever won that number 7. And as of right now, even though the great Terry Bradshaw, I think he surpassed him in accomplishments, especially what he had to deal with and how many errors he's kind of played in. So he's a Hall of Famer. And if his was his last game, farewell to him, best of luck. I'm pretty sure he'd probably be doing something out there in the limelight. But then again, knowing him, he might just, dip off in the sunset. You might never hear from him again.
So he's still doing that. He good.
Yeah, doing some cameos. But I think he's done playing if he decides to play. And I think the Pittsburgh showed a lot of class and let him go out on his own terms. Well, man, we did do another show, and appreciate us. We're getting back together. But once again, guys, if you like what you see and like our show, please hit that like button. And then if you leave it on to help us bring you more of this, please hit that subscribe button. And then once again, let's take care of our sponsors, Team Sports Thread Direct, and Watch Games Coming in the Women's Tackle Football League. And guys, for our illustrious co-host, Andre L. Sullivan here, my producer, Granville Moody Fowler for All Sports High, and to you, the fans, we'd like to thank you for tuning back into our first show of the 2022 year. And we got many more for you, and we'd like to say thank you, and we'll see you next week right here on the Terry McGriff Show. Y'all be blessed.